Serie A is about to deliver its first blockbuster game of the season. Now you're probably wondering, why is it a blockbuster game? Two contrasting managers, two contrasting playstyles, two managers of very different principles, two Italian giants, but on top of everything, one team, Thiago Motta's Juventus, that have conceded the least amount of goals this year in 0, against Antonio Conte's Napoli, who have scored the most. It's about to be a chess game and a half. If you're new, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like. It helps the channel grow. But make sure to let me know how you think this game will go in the comments. Let's get into it. Now, let's look at the team setups. Antonio Conte, Napoli, 3-4-3. 3 centre-halves. A double pivot in midfield. 2 wing-backs. 2 inside forwards, where the one and only Cambiaso is playing the best football we've seen him play in over 12 months. The attack being spearheaded by Romelu Lukaku. A 3-4-3, which transitions into a 5-4-1 as soon as Napoli lose the ball. How does it transition into a 5-4-1? The 2 wing-backs drop into defence to turn the 3 into a 5. The 2 inside forwards drop into midfield to turn the double pivot into a 4-man midfield, with Romelu Lukaku continuing to spearhead the attack. It's compact, it's hard to break down, it condenses the space, and from watching it over the years, it's one of the worst low blocks to come up against. But how will it compare to Thiago Motta's Juventus setup? Let's get into it. Thiago Motta, 4-2-3-1, off the ball, defensive shape, having width, having players in the centre, having players stretching out the pitch. The 4-2-3-1 transitions into a 3-2-5 on the ball. Kalulu slots into a back 3. Cambiaso, who throughout this season has played inverted, he's played out wide, he's played on the left, he's played on the right. This is the starting 11 that I would pick for the game against Napoli. The main inclusion, Thuram. For that physicality, for that mobility, especially when coming up against Napoli's Anguissa. But this is how Thiago Motta's team would transition into a 3-2-5. Kalulu slotting into the defence. The double pivot remains. Cambiaso bombs forward, occupying the flanks, which then allows Kenan Yildiz and 2 Coop Miners to play close around Dusan Vlahovic, but play in the half spaces, making sure every player is close to one another, but there's players in the centre and there's players out wide. Now, how will Thiago Motta's 3-2-5 come up against Antonio Conte's 5-4-1? Which team will have the advantage and which team will be at a disadvantage? So, in game, how will these two setups match up? It's about to sound crazy. Man for man. Man for man. I told you, it's an Italian chess game. It's going to be the blockbuster game of the weekend. Antonio Conte defends in a 5-4-1, which means his rest defense is 5. Thiago Motta attacks in a 3-2-5. 5 versus 5. 5 attackers against 5 defenders. And the beauty in it is, it becomes man for man all over the pitch. The double pivot against the double pivot. Napoli's 3 attackers, Politano, Kvaratskhelia, Lukaku, against Thiago Motta's 3-2-5 against his 3 rest defense. It becomes man for man. But in attack, I want to focus on Juventus. Because I've seen Juventus come up against a team this year that set up in a back 5 in Empoli, and they struggled. Why did they struggle? They didn't stretch out the pitch enough. The players played a bit too narrow. That is any team that sets up in a back 5's dream. Play narrow, because that means now we can get 5 defenders close to one another, close down the space, condense it, turn it into a very congested area, but most importantly, you allow us now to make the pitch smaller than it actually is. So now there's less ground to cover, less ground to defend. What Juventus need to do, and this applies to any team, if you want to have any joy against a team that sets up in the back 5, stretch the pitch out. You stretch that pitch out, you stretch that back 5. You stretch that back 5 from what you can see. You create space in those half spaces. And there's a main reason why I said I would put Kenan Yildiz in and around Dusan Vlahovic. And Cambiaso, not as an inverted fullback, but Cambiaso to play out wide like a traditional fullback. Cambiaso and Gonzalez will hug the flanks, creating space in the centre for Coop Miners, for Kenan Yildiz. But most importantly, they will stretch the Napoli team. A prime example, Juventus against Empoli. We didn't see it enough, but on one occasion we did. Kenan Yildiz stretching the pitch out, which means he is stretching the Empoli defence. He does that, he leaves the defender at a crossroads. Do I follow Kenan Yildiz or do I stick to Dusan Vlahovic? I now need to occupy two defenders. Juventus capitalise on this. Why? Because now there's space. There's space to make passes. There's space to carry the ball. Nico Gonzalez slots in Dusan Vlahovic down the left-hand side, a 1v1. Juventus need to capitalise on this. Juventus need to make sure the pitch is always stretched out. Now let's look at it from the opposite end, from Antonio Conte's side. Antonio Conte attacks in a 3-4-3. Thiago Motta defends in a 4-2-3-1. Who's got the advantage? Juventus, in my opinion. Antonio Conte is more than happy to sacrifice an extra midfielder, an extra attacker, to have an extra centre-half, hence the 3-4-3. Juventus defend in a back four. Bremer, Gatti, Cambiaso, Kalulu. 4-3-3, it gives them that numerical advantage. And you can clearly see, whether it's down the left-hand side, whether it's down the right-hand side, whether it's in the centre, marking Lukaku, Juventus have always got that numerical advantage, that 2v1 in their favour. Now, of course, like football doesn't really work out like that. The midfielders push forward, the wing-backs push forward. Yes, in midfield, it is a 2v2 battle. If the wing-backs bomb forward, Nico Gonzalez, Kenan Yildiz will follow them. This is where I look at Juventus. And most importantly, I look at Napoli. And I see flaws to their back three. Napoli's wide centre-halves, in particular, Di Lorenzo, are not the best at defending the channels. Because that is what is required of your wide centre-halves, to be able to defend the channels. From watching Napoli against Cagliari, looking at it from the outside, 4-0, Cagliari got destroyed. Don't let the scoreline fool you. Cagliari had a lot of joy. They created a lot of chances, and you can see from the photos, the flanks were always open. When Cagliari would win the ball in their own half from Napoli, bearing in mind Napoli have now pushed their whole team forward, they've got 3 defenders. Launch the ball into the channels. Get your wingers 1v1 with Napoli's wide centre-halves. They created chances, they should have scored goals. But this is where I look at Juventus. And I look at people like Nico Gonzalez. 1v1 out wide on the right-hand side. You should come out on top. Kenan Yildiz, 1v1 against Di Lorenzo out wide. You should come out on top. Target the areas where the space is. So defensively, Juventus have got that 2v1 advantage. But when they win the ball in their own half, in my opinion, Juventus need to be direct. Because there's going to be space to attack. Kenan Yildiz, Nico Gonzalez, Coop Miners, offering those overloads, whether it's down the left-hand side, that right-hand side. Juventus have got the weapons. Juventus have got the players to get the joy, but most importantly, to expose this back three formation of Antonio Conte's. At the end of the day, this is just my prediction. This is my breakdown. You never know how the game will go. But if you've enjoyed this type of video, make sure to hit the like. It helps the channel grow. It helps the channel reach a wider audience. Make sure to let me know your predictions in the comments. And make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys on another one.